Dearest friends, the Rabbi of Bratislava is back on the air after a long absence. On the one hand, I apologize for my short disappearance. It's been a very hectic time. But something tells me that maybe we can call it even because I know that it's not always been easy for you all to keep up with the classes, and the only condition I ever made about being part of the group is people should try to listen to every lecture, because that is the way the full benefit is attained. And I do want to say, if for some reason we get an off week, by all means use that time to try to go back and listen to one of the other classes. They are ostensibly connected to the Parsha of the week, but they're timeless teachings that are always useful and always important information to have. So, there was a rabbi who one day became obsessed with the desire to eat pork. Pork, for those whose English is not yet perfect, is the meat of a pig. And he knew that this would not look good for his reputation, so he went to a different state, and he went to a far-flung small town and found a restaurant that he was sure that no one who knew him would be there. He looks down the menu and he eagerly selects the roasted pig, and he waits anxiously, and finally the waiter brings it to him. It's got that, the apple in the mouth. I don't know about Slovakia, but in America the tradition is you put an apple in the mouth of the pig. And he puts it down and he's about to, take a bite, and all of a sudden a group walks in. It's a group of Jewish people from his community. Exactly what he's sure would not happen. They might have also been embarrassed, but they didn't yet order pig, and of course they're not the rabbi. So maybe, as we're going to see, it doesn't matter. The laws apply to everyone. Anyway, they are staring at the sight of the rabbi in form of the roasted pig with the apple in his mouth, and the rabbi is trying to save face, and he says, wow, you go to a restaurant and you order an apple, and look how they give it to you. This week's Parsha Shemini is the Parsha enumerating all of the living things that are kosher and that are not kosher. This is really the Parsha of Kashrut. These lists are repeated in the Deuteronomy, in the Parsha of Re'eh, but they are introduced here. Why are they introduced here? Why is this connected to the book of Leviticus, Vayikra? So we know that the third book, which is nicknamed Leviticus, which means the priestly and temple service, involves an elevated level of holiness connected with the Mishkan and ultimately the temple, B, with the service of the priestly class, who, unlike the rest of us who divide our endeavors between the holy and mundane, they are sanctified above the rest of the nation. And so what happens is that when you have an elevated setting in space and elevated individuals and elevated times, we know that the criteria and requirements are also raised. This is kind of like the non-Jewish concept of noblesse oblige, wherein one expects more from the nobleman than one does from the simple person. And so too, we will find this principle manifesting itself throughout the topic of kashrut. Now, kosher means all right, usable, but it is a word that in fact does not appear in this parsha. And the word that does appear, in fact, the two words that appear over and over again are tameh and tahor, which very roughly translated in English are pure and impure. They are in fact the ones that you can eat, the ones that you can't eat. The translation is even worse in Slovak, because at least in English you have pure, impure, clean, unclean, where in Slovak you don't have that differentiation, so you're left with chisti and nechisti, which really doesn't do justice to the spiritual character of this concept. And so I just want to right away illustrate it. Tameh, which means the impure, the not kosher animals, the Talmud connects to the word timtum, which means clogged, blocked. Those which are not kosher, those which are not pure, block the channels. They impede our connection to spirituality. They limit our understanding. They dull our sensitivity. Khatam Sofer explains very well, actually, in an interesting commentary, that the soul is transcendent, and the soul actually is not contaminated per se by the consumption of non-kosher food. But in addition to the sanctity of the soul, our goal is to elevate our material, to elevate the body. The body is indeed affected and degraded by the consumption of non-kosher food, and it impedes the capacity of the mind and the heart to comprehend and to feel the connection with godliness. Not long ago, I was in Antwerp, and I was sitting having breakfast with a young Hasidic guy, not from the Chabad movement, and as such, he was not involved in a full-time way in doing outreach with those who were not observant, but he was very interested in it. And he says to me, Rabbi, anything you teach about Judaism, you want people to respond, and for that they have to have a sensitivity to what you're saying. When people eat non-kosher food, it dulls that. So wouldn't it make sense to start off making sure people eat kosher? And I have to admit, I had never looked at it that way. The Chabad approach is always one mitzvah at a time. Whichever one it will eventually, hopefully, bring the person to do another one. But there's much to be said for that. And hence, in the United States, many families who are no longer fully observant, but can continue to keep kosher, at least in the home, were more influenceable in trying to intensify the connection to Jewish spirituality. So that is timtum, that is tameh, the impure ones. And what about tahor? That means the clean ones. Tihara in Aramaic, Hebrew Aramaic, means light or daytime, daylight. The idea of the ones that are pure, the exact opposite is true. They illuminate, so the blockage is removed. And so right away, we have a completely different insight about kosher and not kosher.